What do you find that's here in stillness? What's most like stillness that's here for you now? Or maybe it's silence, most like silence. Or it might be equanimity. It's most like equanimity that's here. Or openness, spaciousness. Space of Antonio's room that opens into the ocean, the Mediterranean is behind him. Or Inga's garden. Or Rassi's infinite sky. Or my friend Amara, who's a Joshua tree in the desert. Just that spaciousness and openness. It's most like spaciousness that's here now. Or we could use this classic IFS word, calmness or peace. So as we begin here, of those qualities, of those words, which one resonated the most in your system? Which one was like, yeah, that's it? Silence, stillness, equanimity, openness, spaciousness, calm, peace. What's your word? My invitation is, can we sink into that together? I'd like to sink into that, all in to sink in. What's your experience of that quality? Are you aware of it or are you aware as it? Does it pervade? Is it pervading this body? Can you feel it in your body? And then what if we sink in a little further, just surrender into this? What's that like? And from here, are we able to be almost a loving indifference to what arises, to the thoughts that arise, the weather that's passing? Can we just rest here in this beingness, in this self, as the self? Is your system able to just be aware of or lovingly indifferent to the foreground, to the thoughts, feelings, and sensations, and rest here? Some call this home, sanctuary, this place of rest. And then my invitation is to notice what's the loudest arising in your system in the foreground, the loud, perhaps even the loudest thought. And if there's not a thought, maybe sensation. What's the loudest one? Maybe it's, where's Sid going with this? Or this isn't as much fun. I like the laughter and play. Or how much longer are we going to do this? Or I'm uncomfortable. Or am I doing it right? Or I like this. I like the stillness. I like resting. Why are we going up into the parts? Notice what's loudest for you. And as you notice what's loudest, are you still able to rest the same way in this beingness? Or does it pull you a little bit? Does it pull you out a little bit? And then let ourselves be pulled. See if we can do that. See if we can let ourselves be pulled some towards this loudest part. Maybe like we blend a little bit or we start feeling some sensations associated with it. And how does that work if we're kind of leaving this rest and kind of moving just a little bit towards that part, blending just a little bit with it? What do you have to do? Just do you put attention? Does attention go to it? Or we hear its belief, like, oh, something, I want something, and we kind of start to believe it. How do we do that? How do we move towards this? How do we blend with it just a little bit? And let's go a little further. Let's go a little further towards that part, maybe into that part, identifying with it. Do you feel some sensations in your body? And as you start to feel that, is there another voice in your mind that shows up in our systems that says, oh, I don't like this so much, or something needs to change, or we need to do something about this? So this is the progressive path. If we were to address that part, it's like, okay, I need to heal that part in order to come back to self. I need to relieve it. I need to give it something. And then from here, are you able to return to beingness? Are you able to just to return to this? They call this the direct path, this idea that the sky is always here, peace and rest are always here. Is your system able to just drop back? This is what happens with Advaita Vedanta or the work of Byron Katie. It just shifts back to beingness. How does that work in your system? For some of us, we step back. For others, we zoom out. For others, we inquire, is it true or who am I? And we just shift back to this. As you find your way back, as we rest here together, just one more thing. Let's just be aware of what's arising again from here, from this place of rest. If we can be aware of our parts, aware of the thoughts, feelings, sensations that are here. And is it possible that what's arising is not entirely separate from us? That those parts, those voices, oh, I'm tired. When are we going to stop this? What's next? That they're not entirely separate from beingness. And we glimpse that. And this might be useful. How are you able to see this? What's your metaphor to be able to see, to be aware of what's arising, what's here for you? Is it like little voices, little parts on a stage, or the planets in the galaxy, or the parts resting in the infinite hot tub of self? As we become aware of all of this, of our parts, and we become aware of them from here, could it be that nothing needs to change? Could it be that here it is? Here's the beautiful theater of Sarah, of Jack, of Rossi, of Amara, of Vinder, of Susan, of Antonio, of Inga and Sid. About our theater. Could it be? This is what they call the pathless path. It's like as you recognize there's nothing that needs to change. Look at the innocence of what's arising in us, the beauty of what's here. They call this the joy of life, the dance of Leela. What's it like when everything is just okay, just as it is? And so as we notice this in our own system, and there are 8 of us with you here, is it possible that the space becomes even more open and that we have everyone here is included and their parts are included and there's no problem with everyone just the way they are, with what's arising in them? All right, when you're ready, that was a lot. We can just kind of come back together, open your eyes, and then just kind of shake all that off. It's like, come on, Sid. We didn't get to say anything and we just took us some crazy place. Woo! We just shake it off because we're just being here together. Nothing needs to be done, nothing needs to be understood. We're just exploring together and just as we come back together, my question is just how are you? How was that? How are you? What's coming up for you? And just see if you can notice what's coming up and then what's it arising in or what's it arising of? What's the beingness? What's the space that it's arising in? And as we're all with that, I'm just going to take a minute to do my housekeeping that I am a mediator. I'm not a psychotherapist. This isn't the IFS of psychotherapy. For me, it's friends and colleagues hanging out together. If everybody's good, being responsible for their own journeys, if I could get a thumbs up from you, please. And secondly, as always, I'm recording this, but only my square would only be shared, never your image. However, the audio that you share could be part of a recording that would be shared. And two things with that. If there's any concern about it, just let me know and you become a co-host and you click pause when you speak. Or at the very end, if you recognize there was something you said you didn't want to be shared, just let me know and I go delete, delete, delete. And as always, this is different than other groups that we don't focus on the stories of the parts so much. We focus on what's being wanted, what's being longed for, and we help our system kind of update to find that what is being longed for is here now. If everyone's good with that, that this might be shared, if I could get a thumbs up from you, please. All right, so let's open it up. And how was that? What's going on? Who wants to go first? I got Sid. Remember, I've already forgotten. I remember I said the octave down, octave. We're trying to be like this peace, love, connect, and I'm getting all playful and silly again. Who wants to go first?
I think you promised someone here they could go first.
Oh, thank you so much, Jack. Because our friend Sarah the other day, like we ran out of time before we got to fully hear and celebrate what was happening in her system.
Yeah, thanks for the reminder. Hi. Um, well, today I I really enjoyed the meditation. Um, I noticed a playful part that came up and wanted to play, and it kind of took over. So I was in this like la la land of candy, and she just wanted to eat chocolate and have, you know, as much as she wanted, um, and I just enjoyed that moment. It was like this magical place. Um, and I just fixed myself a cup of coffee, so I was getting a few sips now and then. And in her La La Land, there was a waterfall of cappuccino, and she was drinking from it, and there was just all sort of crazy things. And there was a swan, chocolate swan, like fairy ride that she could ride on, and like all sorts of crazy things, and marshmallow benches, and and just like chocolate stuff, and candy stuff everywhere. Um, and she enjoyed that she can eat as much as she wants without getting bigger. And and she had um, all of my little inner children around. They were dancing and having fun and playing. And there was even the sad one. I recognized it, the emo sad one. It was even there, and it was also having a good time. So I realized, oh, so this is like some sort of a little like Candyland party within going on. I feel like maybe it's the coffee, maybe because yeah, maybe it's just the coffee. Maybe I'm just in that mood today.
Let me
Um,
let me see how everybody's doing with this so far, Sarah, because I don't want us to miss this. And you might be like, come on, this is serious. This is a serious group. What are we talking about? Candyland, La La Land, Waterfalls of Cappuccino, Marshmallow benches. But what if But this is a real question for us. It's like, what is home for your system? And what is we play with beingness. Amara and I we play with this like list of like 100 different qualities of self, of beingness. And it's like as we're getting this gift from Sarah of this just delight, playful Candyland, la la land, it's all chocolate and cappuccino. What about that as the possibility of the background, this beingness, this place of abundance, of welcoming, of love, and perhaps of play? It's just play. Like, could this play? Because when we went into our little guided thing, we were like doing stillness. Wait, Sarah, you did not go where I was where my system went, right? It was like openness, spaciousness, equanimity. But really, like, here's a question for all of us. First, when you notice your inner system, your parts, and you hear about Sarah's playland, her Candyland, and if you asked your system, who would want to go there? Who would like that for your parts? It's like, yeah, exactly. Can you find that you have parts, especially because we find that a lot of our like wounded parts, a lot of our parts that haven't been healed, haven't come home yet, are very young. And like you find that some of them find that very attractive. And then how do you translate? How can you find what Sarah's describing? What's your version of it in your system of this play, of this yumminess? What's your version of this? And maybe your parts could even guide you there as you hear your young parts. What is home for them? What are they looking for? What is welcoming? What is, Vendor said this word earlier, safety, when we were asking about the space that she's in. It's my safe space. Susan described her office that she's sitting in. And then we have Inga out in her backyard, like this nature park. And it's like, what are your young parts longing for? And when we hear what Sarah describes, this playfulness, this lusciousness of chocolate, you have parts that are longing for that. And what's your version of it? What's your version of it? Maybe it's a hug, or maybe it's let's go fly a kite, or it's a trampoline for your children. If we're to welcome your children home, what does home look like? For the adult parts, it might look like a Buddhist Zen studio, but for our young parts, really, what does it look like where they find home? What was it? And Sarah even described she had her sad part that she called her emo part. Even the sad part was feeling welcomed here. What do your sad parts want? What do your young children want? What does home look like for them? Tell us more, Sarah.
Well, I noticed that the critical voice, it came up about the chocolate, like, oh, you're gonna eat all of that. But then there was that magic trick of like, oh, nothing you can eat here can make you bigger because it's just La La Land. It's just this magical place. So the critic didn't have power there anymore. And I feel like, oh, like I'm just checking in with that part. Like, how does it feel? Like, is it powerless in this space? Um, but it also it brought my attention to something good. Like, I appreciated. Like, oh, there's shame for me around eating so much chocolate or drinking so much coffee or just indulging. There's weight related shame, and
Yes.
yeah. So I realized, oh, there's that there underneath all of that La La Land. So yeah. So it's good to know that it's not all candy and, and chocolate. There's also some shame, but that's okay
Yes.
there as well. I and just being okay with it, I can just get to enjoy the magical land, and my parts get to enjoy it without feeling the guilt or the shame.
So how about that? How about what Sarah's describing? It's like when we find out what aspects of us want, like we probably have some parts that just want to go play and laugh and be silly or wear some really wild clothes, or parts of us that whatever they're longing for, whatever they're looking for, and there might be different expressions and a different sense of what home is. Like, oh wow, I really want relationship, the love of relationship, or a parent, or this nature. And that we have parts that come up that say, what's wrong with you? Why are you, you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be eating all this chocolate. And just to notice our version of Sarah's shame part. And can that be welcome too? Is our space, our stage large enough to open and welcome that as well? So Sarah, I'd like to open this up to see if anything's coming up for anybody with about La La Land. Any responses? What's coming up as you hear about Sarah's land and for your system?
I play Candyland with my grandkids and my wife virtually every time they come over. It's a great game. Try to get to Candyland. I actually, strangely enough, I have a real high percentage of winning that, and it's all completely chance. There's no skill involved whatsoever.
Yes.
And everybody jokes it's because I look the most like the king of Candyland because he has a beard and I have a beard, right? They joke about that. But yeah, and they say, oh no, he'll let you in because he knows you don't eat candy, Grandpa, and they won't eat anything. You'll just give it all away to us. I go, yeah, you're right. I'll just invite you all in and you can all have all the candy you want when I'm there. No, but I do like to play Candyland with my grandkids. It's great. I love it.
No, thank you, Jack.
So anyway, that's a story, but there you go. That's what came up.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I just want to say I can so relate, because I also have parts that are like coffee and chocolate, I really want that. And like, especially this one part, it's afraid it might be taken away. And it's like, no, I want that. And it's like, it doesn't care, that I don't tolerate dairy well, but it's like, so when you shared, Sarah, it just really resonated, I thought like, I'd want coffee and chocolate too, very much so.
So this is us that wants that, right? In Inga's system, the young parts that want chocolate and coffee. But then we can go outside for it. We're used to finding it externally, Jack's chocolate. But the game we're playing here, right, is finding that sense of fulfillment from our intrinsic nature, finding the sense of home here. And it's right, especially for these young parts, the sense of play. What does acceptance look like for these young parts? What does yumminess look like? What does home look like inside? Anybody else with this?
I could go. Where I go with that specific question, immediately I saw my lap. So, and experience this just unconditional welcoming is what my younger parts want. And at the same time, this talk of the play and Candyland, which was my favorite game as a kid, it makes me wonder what I'm out of touch with in my system, because I'm not in touch with those that just want to play. So it makes me curious to maybe open to that. Like, is that missing? So a little bit of lack might be coming in with, am I missing something? I must say, all the while, I drink chocolate every morning for breakfast. This is my breakfast, and no guilt, just love and opening. But I do make it, at the same time, I make this, it's ceremonial, and I open my heart to it and ask it to show me the places that haven't been met with loving awareness yet, because that's what it's so good at. Cacao is just so good at showing us the places that haven't been yeah, met with loving awareness. So even that, I mean, I could lighten up a little bit with it and get more playful with my chocolate for breakfast. And
Oh,
so yeah, because it's, because I'm doing work with it, have I made it legitimate somehow instead of playful? So things like that are coming up for me in Sarah's share. I really appreciated it. It's like wanting to get in touch with that playfulness here.
beautiful.
Thank
And
you.
what about that? Like we talk about doing therapy for our young parts, right? So much of this game is about letting our system come home. And then just what Amara said, like she has chocolate for breakfast. But it's but really, because the way when parts get exiled, they're like being pushed down, ignored. Like, I don't want to see you, I don't want to hear you, right? And just being seen, being recognized, being honored, this something that really loves chocolate. And it might seem superficial, but but really, we're seeing those aspects of us, and they're being welcomed. And it's not just internally welcomed, and like Amara's describing, it's welcomed into her external life in time as she gives them chocolate, like being seen and included. I love that.
That's a big one. Seen and included. Welcomed,
Mm.
reflected even. Yeah. Thank you. This is such a lovely space. I'm loving it. This is beautiful. Thank you, Sid. Thanks, everybody.
Oh, you're welcome. Rossi, was that you going?
Yes, yes, yes. That was. I didn't want to bring. I don't know how much time we have for each person, but I really wanted to bring a little bit of this because I love chocolate. Okay, I love chocolate. Ever since they gave me chocolate when I was 1 year old, I was. I love it, and kind of like Amara, I really do welcome it. And chocolate is absolutely a part of my life. And there's just like a different type of chocolate. There's a candy chocolate and uh, there's the cacao. So Amara, like what you brought about the cacao, like I was like, "Oh, I have some in my drawer and I haven't had a ceremonial cacao in a long time." But I just, yeah,
And so how
really.
about that? How about that,
But
Rossi? We think about the cacao that's in your drawer, right? And I haven't had this in a while. And just for all of us, when we think about chocolate or whatever our favorite treat is, what aspects of us get excited? See if you can find, like Sarah talks about all of her parts, like what parts of you, like, yes, chocolate. What voices? Who gets excited about the cacao that's in the drawer? And can there be almost like a parent, and as you're aware of this, can there be just a sweetness, almost like if we had a child that gets to have chocolate, you get to enjoy this aspect of us, gets to find, is being seen, is given a treat. What's that like for you, Rossi? What do you find?
I'm smiling, Sid, because there's different drawers, okay? And to me, the cacao actually feels like it's that conscious part of me that really wants to invite ceremony and it wants to invite the conscious process. That what I felt when Amara spoke. And then there's like the drawer with my other chocolate, which is more of like it's like I don't know, it's like this emotional sustenance and I really am aware of like, yeah, I saw a Facebook group pop up this morning, and it was like about no sugar, and I clicked not interested because I was like, I don't know if I can imagine life without sugar. Like, it's like it's the cacao and the sugar, a little bit different, yeah. Oh, there's a lot there. I feel like my energy rising, but yeah, feels good to explore this. And then this question, it feels such a deep question of how do I go? What is how do is going to home? Like what is chocolate does feel like home essence energy for me. So like what is about that? I'm seeing Amara's aerospace. Like this is so great. Yeah. Okay, I'll pause here.
Oh my. But this is just to add it, this is different than we've done in this group, because the game has been to focus on the inner, the qualities of beingness and finding fulfillment here. But this is really interesting, turning it outside in the world into what the cacao that's in the drawer, and then the other treats that are in the other drawers in this way, and just being aware of what in us longs for that, like loves it, gets excited about it. And as we can become aware of that and become aware of our precious expressions of life, these precious parts, these aspects of us, as we're aware of them, then it's like the internal party, Sarah's party that she was having in Chocolate Land. It's like it gets to be this party for us, right? As we get to see the aspects of us that get excited, that find fulfillment, that want this. And it's just like Rusty was saying, the ceremony, this almost a sacredness of recognizing, seeing these aspects of us being seen and recognized. Who wants to go next? We could talk about Chocolate Land, or we talk about what happened, what came up for you, whatever's going on. Yeah, Fender.
Hey, I really enjoyed the meditation, and I went into this very calm and peaceful place. I didn't want to, I didn't want to be out of there to look at my parts yesterday or tomorrow or next hour. It was good.
So for you, it was more calm. You found more calm and peacefulness, right? And just for all of us, like again, just what did you find? Where did you go? What was your primary word? It might not have been La La Land like Sarah's, right? It might have been different, more like Vinder's, as calm and peaceful. And please continue, Vinder.
It felt like it grounded. I'm in my body. I'm here. I'm also, my part was being proud that came to spend, I had so many things to do yesterday and prioritizing. But then I decided to call somebody, say, come and help me. I'll just pay that, because normally I have to do it. I've gone through a couple of burnouts, and I'm trying to clean my yard at the back, and hadn't been looked after for the last 5 years. And so I felt really good about it. Paid the guy, and he needed the money. And I'm proud of that part because I had a number of things to be done. I was going to go see my kids. I wanted to cook for them, and that gives me a joy when I'm doing things for others. But when it comes to myself, I feel others, I need to be prioritizing, not myself, but I've been doing the work for myself in the morning. I made that a commitment. Until 10 o'clock, it's me.
Now, let me just invite everybody in this, because this is where we've been stretching together, as Vinder has shared how life is moving in her, right? And the enthusiasm there, that there's a sense of prioritizing this aspect of her that's kind of prioritizing what needs to be done. Like, can we feel that sense, that part, that expression of life in her? And almost like this is one big stage that we're on, as we include each other's systems, as we fully welcome them. Are we able to welcome that? Like, it's like, wow, this aspect of her that's just kind of prioritizing till 10 o'clock. I take care of what needs to be done. And this other part that was asking for help, and another part that was happy. Wow, I asked for help. And can we sense these aspects of life in her that we just can label as parts if we want? And the sense of, when I help others, there's a joy that comes as she helps others. She notices this is a part of her, and then there's this other voice that's like, it's important to take care of me, to have this time for me. As we hear these aspects of her, notice what comes up for each of us. Is it just being met by this acceptance, this awe, this curiosity from what we call self, from beingness? Notice that how we're welcoming her parts. And then in each of us, do we also find some other parts that are coming up? Like, God, that sounds difficult. Maybe a commentary one, a narrative, or hey, maybe we could help that part, or maybe that part could change. Notice what comes up for you with vendors' parts. Are they just being welcomed and loved and celebrated on our big stage? And do you also have parts that are coming up like that? Like Sarah's part, she noticed, and even in the midst of the Candyland, there was shame that came up. Do we have parts that come up, maybe a critic or a discomfort? And as those come up for us, can they be included? Can we include those? And then just in the tape, make it a little bit more personal. As we hear vendors' parts, can we find a resonance in our own system where nothing that she's sharing is foreign to us? Nothing is foreign. This one that prioritizes. Oh, I have an aspect of me that prioritizes. The one that is so happy to ask for support. Maybe a sense of some overwhelm, like it gets overwhelming, all this that I have to do. As we hear that in her, can we find that in our own system? And can all of that be welcomed? And this is a lot, and it's not as much fun as Sarah's Candyland, but this leads to something really beautiful. Like if we can really welcome all of vendor system like that, and everything that comes up in response to it, then this is how we're building capacity in our own to welcome everything that comes up in us. Vendor, maybe some final words bringing this all together, or how's that for you, having us welcome what's happening in your system?
Even some of the parts, for example, judgment, or a critical part toward others yesterday came, but I was very aware, of somebody's attitude, and I'm thinking, what for me, the needed acceptance was there,
Yes.
but at the same, I need to accept myself. It's okay. That's that person's stuff.
Beautiful.
So,
Thank you.
mhm.
Yes.
So I
What a
felt good about it. I was still felt in my body. I was not reactive, although the body language was so strong. And she's 16, right? She needed
yeah.
her phone back.
So let me include everybody in this one. So we're having a really great day, or let's say right now we're having a great day, and the critical part comes up, like vendors describing that happen. As we hear vendor's critical part as she describes it. Can that be welcomed? Can vendor's critical part be welcomed? Can that be welcomed? And then what about our version of that? The critic that comes up, you're having a great day. Hey, we're in Playland, Candyland, it's all fun. And then the critic comes up and says, you're doing it wrong. Or we're playing with someone and then the critic comes up, oh my God, can you believe what they're wearing today or what they said? Can that be included as well? Can we include that? Thank you, vendor. Because we have such a large group, I want to kind of keep us rolling today.
Thank you.
And so nice. And anything coming up before we go to probably Antonio? Before we go to Antonio, and anything coming up for anybody with what vendors shared, or Rossi, Amara, anything bubbling with what's been shared before we move on to Antonio? And then before we go on, let me just ask everybody, how are you? How are you? How are you? And Rusty goes, woo. How are you? And like just says, maybe that's like the background. What Ross is like, oh, there's this openness, maybe this connectedness, love. What's the background? Is there still candy in the background? Is there still chocolate? Is there still a cappuccino river? What's in the background? Is it peace? Is it okayness? And what's in the foreground? Is it like maybe an understanding part? How do I make sense of all of this? Or gosh, that was a lot what Sid just did and inviting us to include everything. What's the foreground? What are the parts? Can we be aware of all of this beingness that's here that welcomes, and all of our precious expressions of life? Can all of that be welcomed? Is it okay? Is it okay with what's here now? Is that okay? And just one more little thing in the midst of this, as we're aware of it all, Are we able to play with the direct path and just step back? Are we able to just step back to what Rossi did, this beingness, this okayness? Can we just step back into that? And have like, there's some distance from the foreground, the parts. Can we just sink in back to beingness, to this okayness, the flow? And then from here, is it possible, can we glimpse an okayness of everything? That everything's okay, even the parts that are coming, even Vinder's critic that comes in, even your critic, that everything's okay just as it is. And Tony, I called you just because I haven't heard much from you, and I'm just like, I want to hear from Antonio. I miss my friend Antonio, but please, we can wait. If nothing is there right now, we can see what's bubbling for people. If there is something, please share.
Well, something is there. It's so funny. Do you ever? I was wondering, like, do you, any of you, do you get this this experience of like reduced capacity? I mean, my feeling is almost as if, because like I got considering that I'm really tired, like I've been overworking really lately and undersleeping. So I was really tired, and it was super easy for me to get into the meditation. I immediately connected to that stillness. And we could go into that and how that was, because it was fascinating for me. But then like gradually by, opening myself to everything that everyone was sharing, like from visiting all these different landscapes, and I have this subjective experience that it's almost like everywhere, any of these, each one of these places that I've been to, and the parks that have come up, and the parks that I've visited by proxy, just by experiencing them in other people. It feels like all of them, like they're living this little, I don't know, like an imprint, like an energetic residue in a sense, and it almost feels like they pile up and they almost like block the vessel of where, I don't know, where that stillness seemed to come from. It probably didn't come from that, but it's just how I'm experiencing right now. Like I'm feeling a little like overwhelmed from so much energy that has gone through the system, and I see
great. What's over? Let's see the overwhelm, right? Just what you're asking everybody as we hear Antonia say, "Wow, all of that," and his system opens up, and by proxy experiences Candyland and Vinder's experiences and Amara's and Rossi's, and goes there. Something says something gets overwhelmed. Can we all relate to that as we welcome this overwhelmed part of Antonio's? And what's that like in your system? How does do you hear it as a voice? Is it a sensation? Where do you hear that overwhelm? And what's it like? Where do you hear it, Antonio? Where does that show up, the overwhelm?
It's a heaviness that I feel in some areas of my body. There's a tightness in some areas around like the lower throat and my collarbone. There's like a tension, like something. Yeah, it's like yeah. It feels like it feels like the expression of like a place that's too crowded. Like there are too many conflicting or different parts, like wanting to have a say or wanting my attention and
wonderful. And so first for all of us, as we hear about this tension in the throat and the collarbone in Antonio, the sense of it's just too much going on here, crowded. How are we responding to this sense of it's welcomed? And it's like, that's welcome too, for all of us. Or do we have parts that come up? It's like, okay, what do we need to do about this? It's a problem solving. How can we help Antonio or help my own system? Just to notice what comes up. And then with Antonio, I'm wondering, and what's our version of that? What's your version? How do you feel that? What's the somatic experience in each of us when it just becomes a little too much? When overwhelm comes? Can that be okay? Can it be accepted? Can that be welcomed? But at the same time as it's welcomed, can we also hear the wisdom of it? Right? Can we really, can there be an intimacy with this, and an Antonio, this tension in the neck and collarbone? Can there be an intimacy with it for what's the message there? Is it, as we welcome it, as we're aware of it, is it like, okay, this is something I've kind of reached my capacity right now. This is enough. I think when Inga goes, I think I'm just going to stay inside, and I'm not going to travel by proxy with her. I'm going to give my system a chance just to be here with everything. It's like the wisdom of it, right? What's it like for you, Antonia, as you're with that, in that somaticness in you?
Well, there's a part that's sort of screaming, like, I want to feel good. Like, I just, I'm really tired. I just want to feel good. So, just stop this.
Mhm.
And then when I heard you say about this possibility, right? Like when Inga is sharing, like, I have the choice to relate differently to it, and so that helped me notice this part that showed up like so eager, like, okay, bring it on. Like, I wanna, I'm here for, I'm here for this. Like, I'm so happy to be here to connect with all of you. I wanna like go in the trenches. There's this like almost like a I just find it funny.
Nice.
And yeah, so I found that really inspiring. Like, I could read that as a sign of, okay, yeah, I have maybe reached my capacity for today, and actually I have to.
What about parts that resist that? Like the ones you said, like who wants, like, what do you mean? I can't go into Ingaland with her. I want to go too. I don't want to miss out on that. And it's like in parts of it also, in me, there'd be parts like, oh, what am I going to miss? I don't want to miss that. There's more. We have 40 minutes left. I don't want to miss all of that. And it's like, and often there's spiritual achiever. It's like, whoa, that want more and want to push. And aren't they awesome that they don't want to miss life? It's like this and that. And like, can they also be welcomed? And just for all of us, how does that play in you, this tension that Antonio's describing? The sense of, okay, I'm feeling kind of full now, and it's like, let's just kind of be with what's here. And the other parts are like, no, keep going. We want more. And can all of that be here? Like, can we welcome all of that that's playing in Antonio? Can all of that be welcomed on our stage? And can it all be welcomed in us, our version of it? That wants more, it wants to play, doesn't want to miss anything. And then maybe, Antonio started saying he was tired. He's tired. And it's like to honor all of that. How's that all come together for you, Antonio? How do you make sense of these different perspectives and wants?
Yeah, like it's just it has helped me, that this part is like being a lot more visible. Like, it's very clear now, and I can sense, his energy and what he, like his agenda and what he's here for, and the way he likes to support me. And
Nice. Beautiful. And as we hear Antonio say this, like the tenderness, and he's describing what's arising in him, like, does that help us see the innocence of his parts and the beauty of his parts? And then similarly for ours. For ours that say yes, no, I want this, I want that. To see the innocence of them. This is part of our game, and that pathless path, as we see the perfection of what is, as we can see more and more the innocence and beauty of our parts, as we can just, as we can see the innocence, beauty of Antonio's parts, it opens us up more and more to the beauty of what is that's arising in all of us. Gosh, I wish we had an hour just to dive into this land of Antonio, but I also don't want to miss on Amaro and Susan and Jack and Inga. And I was can you bring it all together with anything else you'd like to share with us, Antonio? It's so lovely.
No, I appreciate how closer together you've brought us. Thank you. That's nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, how was that for you? Yes, Rossi.
I wanted to volunteer because there were some things that came up for me. So I don't know if is that okay? Yeah. Yeah, but maybe somebody else wants to share impact. Yeah.
Any impact statements? Any bubbling things before Rossi shares? Anything that came up with what Antonio shared that you'd like to share? Anybody? Rossi, I think they can all feel your enthusiasm. No, I want to hear what Rossi has to say.
And it's just bashful part. Oh. But yeah, I could share.
Please.
Yeah, I really resonated with Antonio with the part about wanting to feel this expansion. It just feels so amazing. And the experience I'm tracking, I mean, there's so much here, so just let me see what words want to go first. But it's it's the experience lately I'm having because I'm going through a transitional period, so there's these major big things happening in my life, and I'm trying to surf the waves where I don't get wiped out. As in the past I would just kind of overwhelm, flooding of emotions, just very intense parts coming up, feeling of helplessness and hopelessness. But there's definitely this capacity growing, and all these things that I seem to be, drawn to. There's a sense of real, how it feels like a real, I won't say real growth, but I'm kind of another part is saying is it growth? It's like a capacity growing. It's one of the words. I mean, I feel. And then
let's pause right there. Just
pause.
how are we following Rossi with that? The capacity growing. What's your version of that? Capacity growing. And how do you know when you're at the edge of your capacity with the wisdom of your system? How do we know? Is it somatic? Is it a voice? Please tell us more.
Thank you. By the way, I feel so much more at ease with the process than the first time I was here. So it's great. And yeah, and the a phrase from a poem that I came up for me, which is Hafiz. There was this, and I remember the word. It said if you could just turn just a little bit this way, you would have found God and me standing there welcoming you. And it's the experience I'm having in this session and the last session. It's a very much awareness of, oh wow, if you could just sense into this piece, and open to this, boom, there it is. And it was always there. It's just more of an access to it. So that feels really, I mean, that feels amazing. Jeez Louise, I've been longing for that for so long.
And what is it that you would sense? Sarah sensed into Candyland, Vendor into this piece. What is your word for what's just this Hafiz? And if you just turn just a little bit, here I am. What's there? What's the flavor that's there waiting for you?
What's the flavor? It's the like the vast openness, like and also a wholeness, a sense of wholeness. So it's like it's this like a presence that has a sense of wholeness, and nothing is missing. And interestingly enough, like I'm so aware of like the parts, or like becoming more aware of all these parts that feel like there's great things missing. But in this space, they're not. They're here. It's just that they're not. That's not my experience. My experience is of the vastness, of the wholeness.
Wow. So how's this going for us as we listen to Rossi speak about this with the parts that are kind of looking for something, and then you just, then here it is, the vastness, the whole, as she goes, this, the vastness, the wholeness, or you look at the background. What's it like for us, and how do your parts find it? Is it like, is it just turns a little bit, or is it that sinking in, they just relax and there it is, that they find it inside? Or is it more like Amara's? They like sit on her knee and they're just being held. How do they find it? What's that turn in your system to find this? Any kind of final thoughts on that, Rossi? How do your parts, what's the turn for them? How do they find this vast open wholeness where nothing is missing?
I mean, at this point, I could venture guesses, and there's like things that I feel intuitively drawn to, but yeah, it is clear to me that like in a specific relational space, that in like this energy is easier to resonate with and sort of like amplify. Yeah, I know that when I'm by myself, it's a little bit different. Yeah.
Okay, so how about that? Because actually, before you got here, we were playing with that. I was asking Inga and Susan and Vinder about the environments that they were in, that they chose, and they found that those environments help that resonance, that openness. And
Being
just what you're
outside, like for instance, for Inga, is that what you mean? Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like that what makes it more conducive for us? What opens the space more for our parts to be able to make it more likely they're going to be able to find that this is here? And for some of us, it might be being with Sarah. It's like, hey, if Sarah's in the group, we're gonna, it's gonna be this play. It's silly, and it's just for and it's just for others, it's being with their puppy or being in their meditation room. What is it that makes it more conducive for your parts? Just like what Rossi said, to find this vast openness, this wholeness where nothing is missing. Thank you, Rossi.
Thank you. Can I say one more piece? Like just
Yes.
a tiny piece? Yeah, which is that like when I walked in, there were parts that were like, unsure, and there was a lot of stuff going on in my background, and so it was definitely not just like, I mean, it's like an easing in, maybe like easing into water, and at first it kind of feels a little cold, and then all of a sudden like there's this other, so it's like same element, right? Like it's still like the experience of being in the water, however, maybe like a just a relaxation into. Yeah.
Okay, we can't just run past that for all of us. What Rossi just said, there's this like easing, like you get into a pool or something, you just, something relaxes, it goes in the water. Coming to this group, right? You show up, it's like, oh my God, I don't know this woman, Amara. It's like, and then something just relaxes, connection comes. And so what's that like in your system? And can we appreciate that? Can we love that about our parts? That they need to have that little relaxing time. They need to find comfort in the water. Something relaxes. How does that work in your system? How it acclimates and just finds, and then once that happens, there's more an ability to find what Hafiz is offering and speaking of. All right, now they're shaking it off. Let's shake it off. Like, whoa, here we are. We're in playland with 8 friends hanging out. We're not going anywhere. We're just enjoying. And just before we go to who has the next bubbling, I did feel a little like Antonio did say something. He said, and then there was this incredible silence, and we kind of ducked over that. And just, could we take a minute, Antonio? Is there anything you'd like to share about that? It felt like a gem that we were missing.
I was writing on the chat that I actually need to leave because I have to work. I need to go. I'm so sorry. It was
Give us some final
great.
words. Give us a final Antonio finale.
Good. So about the stillness, like what I found really surprising, it was so easy to connect to the stillness, and there was this like this awe and this amazement, and there was this, it felt so much like home, yet at the same time so elusive. And what was really shocking was to notice like nothing needs to move actually. Like no movement is needed.
Nice.
And you know, just noticing like nothing is moving and everything is working. Thank you. Have a lovely day, everyone.
See you later. See you
See you
later.
soon. See you soon.
Oh.
Bye-bye. Have fun.
Bye.
It's so much like home, yet elusive. Much like home, yet so elusive. Hafiz, just around the corner. Here it is. Who wants to go next? Susan!
So hi. Oh, so I just had something come up on my computer. Let me just get rid of that. So my system's loving all self-talk at the moment, all self, and I found Rossi's wholeness was like a transmission. So I'm lapping that up, and then what I get is I've got this militant protector that anytime there's a movement away from that self, which in my case was stillness and a bit of wholeness thrown in by Rossi, which was lovely. It gets militantly protective, and it's like it's not going anywhere. It's not letting me move. I mean, in a way, that is moving away, of course, but it's this militant protector that doesn't want to get involved in anything but self. That's what I've noticed. Although my parts really enjoyed a celebration of chocolate. I mean, why not, you know? God's gift. And I like the idea because my parts have always gone to a little woodland glade on a stream, and there's some guides as well, so it's very safe in terms of who's there and connected and in nature. But I could imagine having a cacao ceremony that's quite fun for the kids too, you know, with the not that I've ever had one actually, but I like the idea of it. So it would be, I don't think cacao's sweet of itself, but they'd have sugar in theirs. And maybe I would too anyway, but anyway, yeah, so that's, but the part that's coming up is this protector around, I'm not going anywhere away from, it's like got its feet in saying I'm not going anywhere apart from, you know, we're not moving away from self, which is a kind of, I had a dream a couple of nights ago where I actually was shown a cave-like place in a forest, and I sort of thought I'm meant to be turning into a hermit here or something. I'm really
Susan, let me invite everybody into this. I don't want to go anywhere but here. This self, this stillness and wholeness, this self. I just want to stay here. There, we got it. This feels good. This still, I want to stay here, and like, no, we're staying here. As we hear this part of Susan's, can that be welcomed? Can we welcome that? And can we see the innocence and beauty of this part? It's like in IFS, no bad parts. Everything that arises is doing its very best to serve life, to serve us. And so this militant protector, it says, we're not leaving. We want to stay right here. Or we want to be in this cave. We want to stay in the stillness and wholeness. Can that be welcomed and celebrated? And then for all of us, what's our version of this? Sometimes when we touch, or we touch Candyland, or we touch this peace and stillness, like that's it, I want to stay there. Or I want to just have no place but there. How does that part show up in you? Where do you hear it? Is it outside of you? Is it in front of you? Is it like a knight? Like, is there an image for this part? Is there an image? Like Susan used the word militant. Is yours like that? Is it like a soldier? Like, what's its voice? Is it deeper, stronger, more grounded? What's that like in you? And first, a question for all of us, and for Susan, how are you with that part, Susan? How does your system feel towards that part?
Well, it feels like it's kind of ironic because it takes away from, it actually is causing quite a bit of tension. But I get it on the one hand, because it's a great desire generally to be more self-led and be in self and abide in self, really. And it came up when it started to feel a bit of overwhelm, talking about what Antonio was. I started to feel a bit of overwhelm, so it stepped in because it doesn't want the self energy to be overwhelmed.
Yeah,
And it kind of overwhelmed the self energy by doing that. So it's kind of ironic.
And so when that happens, where it feels a little overwhelmed, it's taking control, we have a part, and we all can find this, right? A part that just becomes really loud and big in our system. It's kind of what we were playing with at the very beginning as we were moving towards the part, getting closer, like it becomes bigger, right? And it's like, can we find okayness with that when that occurs? Like, oh, this is what's occurring. We find okayness, and sometimes there's a sense of something zooms out, this awareness. Sometimes this awareness becomes, it can kind of see it from a little bit more distance. But can we find okayness when that happens? And where else do you want to go with, especially where I feel this, we had such a big group and you can move quickly today. I mean, I'd like to go into the cave with you and go further, but just what would be your next piece or bringing this all together for us, Susan?
Well, no, just to notice that there was some judgment about it until it was seen for what it was doing, which was actually a very sweet bit of service, however erroneous in a way, but it was sweet. So that's calmed it all down. And then Rossi did her wholeness piece, and I was back in self, and all my parts are kind of calmed and soothed. Thinking about chocolate, that's quite soothing actually to the parts. I noticed that was nice.
So
So
how about this? But then let's say Inga starts talking and she starts sharing, and something in hers really, like your part, gets excited, something reacts, and this militant one says, wait a minute, no, we're not going there. We just want to go back. Can that be accepted too when it just really gets loud?
let's see. I think I'll find that out. I think it helps to recognize, to somehow get a sense of the role and what it's doing. Yeah. But since I came, but there has been a kind of a holding on, I came back from a type of retreat, and there's been a sort of a grasping at it, not letting it, when you don't want it to go, I don't want it to go. So that's kind of, and yeah. So I'll carry on with, I'll explore that and see how it goes when Inga checks in.
Thank you. Thank you, Susan. And just
Thank
for all
you.
of us again, can we find the innocence, perhaps the beauty, the perfection, the radiant presence of this part, of this protector, this militant one, the one that wants to hold on? Susan just came back from this long retreat, and it's like, wait a minute, I want to hold on to what was there. We all know this resistance that comes up, this no, I want this. Can we see the beauty of that? And this is where we get closer to this. Everything is beautiful just as it is. There's nothing that needs to be changed. All right, who wants to go next? Who's got something bubbling? Inga, Mara, Jack.
I can share real quick because yeah, I often experience my parts as a big no, and there can be the all-inclusive, like there's the all-inclusive yes at the same time. And so when Antonio shared, I felt tired too, but at the same time there's an okayness, like yes, it's okay. And I have to go, no, it's not okay. I don't want this. but well, it might be different in different systems. In my system, it's also, I ask the parts, hey, what do you want? And they're like, I don't know. I don't want this. Yeah, and I really enjoyed the meditation, what your guidance, in the beginning. There's a lot of just quiet okayness. That's what I experienced today. It comes with I often talk about the darkness. I know that people don't like that, but it's a little bit, the silence, it's a little bit, it's so silent that it has a darkness to it. So not in a negative way.
Parts get scared, Inga, in that it's so silent that it has a darkness. As for all of us, what's our version of that? It's so silent, or it's so empty, it's so still that it could even feel dark. Do we have parts that are like, oh, I don't like this, that's not safe? Or does resistance arise to that, Inga, in your system?
Oh, well, I guess there is some resistance most of the time because everything ends there. There's just, but on the other hand, my parts love it, so it's a weird thing.
Nice. And then Inga also mentioned a quiet okayness, just a quiet okayness. When we hear that, what's your version of that? Can you find some of that in the space here? Or you could cheat like I do, just kind of tune into Inga and it's like resonate. It's like, oh, there it is. There I find it. And it's like cheat. It's like the gift of Inga, right? But it's like, can we find what's our experience of that? And then Inga also spoke of the sense of there's a yes here. There's a big yes as beingness, as self. It's just there's a yes. But then she also speaks of a big no. And it's like, I don't know what I want. I just know there's a no. These parts, these things that arise that say no. It's like, can we feel that? The big no in our system. And can this okayness, this quiet okayness, or this Candyland, this space, this love, can it include that big no? Any final thoughts, Inga?
Yeah, I just noticed I have a part that wants to share one thing, because you often talk about how do we make sense of this whole, how it's connected, and the relationship between self and parts. And to me, at the moment, I got this new picture that I really love, and so I have a part that wants to share that. It says it's like ice and water, like there's the being, there's all this water, and then there are all these beautiful things like the parts and the body and all that stuff that is almost like it's the same, but it shows up so in a different way. And because it often also feels like the parts just melt into beingness, when they feel safe and loved. Yeah, those were my final words.
Wow, thank you. Melting into beingness. Thank you, Inga.
Thank you.
All right, we've got two treats left. We've got Amar and Jack.
I'm happy to share. Yeah, during your first part, yeah, you like to take me to that sort of headless, loving, joyous awareness kind of space, right? And there's a part that said, oh, to attribute, to try to describe something that's nameless. I guess you say you have to make concessions or whatever, but that to try to describe that, anything you could say about it, it's not it for me anyway. That's the kind of way I look at it. But then I thought, oh, but it's definitely taking a perspective. It feels like there's a perspective there. And I just sort of tried to rest in the part that was seeing that, just let it sort of, it couldn't really necessarily figure out the perspective. It felt like there was one there, but it was hard to describe it. And that sort of just completely captivated that part's. I might be able to go off and think about it some more, but so that thinking part of me really sort of took over in a really interesting way. But yeah, I'm really noticing in my life how much I just like to be distracted. How much I like to be distracted. Yeah. I just, and not always knowing even what I want to be distracted from is a sort of the part that I've been investigating a lot, but yeah. Some other stuff came up, but that's sort of the main things that were kind of going up for me. And I mean, I showed you my chocolate, that's 90% cocoa. So there's a little tiny little bit of sugar, but I'm trying to get I could go to the 100% probably too, but so I'm not trying to go to the sugar part at all. That's kind of.
Thank you.
Anyway,
Thank you.
that's kind of what came up for me, but yeah.
Awesome. Well, how about what came up for Jack? How about this sense of, even when they're not words to describe a part, that there's a sense of a perspective. How many different perspectives are alive in each of us? As we went to Candyland with Sarah, and she was describing emo and the different parts that were enjoying the chocolate, and then the shame, each with a different perspective. What's this like in your system? Different perspectives. Inga's parts that say no, and then others that are curious. And Susan's protectors that just want to, just self, only self. Benders, taking care of me, the joy of being with others. The boundaries, the critic, each a different perspective. And then Jack also mentioned the sense of the pull towards distraction, right? The part or parts that are like wanting distraction. They're looking for distraction. Can we all relate to that? I'll just include that part of Jack's and I'll relate to that in our system. And then Jack's curiosity. What is it that this part, they're protector parts, right? They're looking for distraction. What is it protecting us from? Can we welcome that in Jack's system? Just welcome that, the protector and whatever else is there. Thank you, Jack. And so, for our finale, we've got Amara. before we go
speak again.
Yay!
Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, in the meditation, there was a critic that came up that was, what was that reaction to Sid introducing you? Like that wasn't an appropriate reaction from someone like who he described. And so I was with that for a little bit and just welcoming that critic and realizing there may be something there to be met, seen. And so the first interpretation of what happened was that I was rejecting goodness coming from you, or a reflection of appreciation, like I was rejecting a reflection of appreciation. And I couldn't find that but I did find my system, what I saw that what my system was responding to being put in a box. Actually, the way it was received, it was like, rather than coming in anonymously and with this openness, like this, this openness of anonymity, I was being like made into something that was uncomfortable. That was the reaction. So I learned that. So that was a relief to the system, actually, to see, no, I wasn't rejecting that, your kindness. That was beautiful. It was the sense of being somebody who should be a certain way. And the system just knee-jerk responding. And that was interesting to see what that looked like, that the response to that. And then then also there's a wondering what else was in there. It was just so rich. That one basically it felt like a rejection, and that was uncomfortable. Like rejecting what was really uncomfortable. And so that was in there too, like the sense of a no. And so just being with that.
Let me check in with everybody with this one. Can we all find this? Like you show up to play, you show up to be with someone. Hey, we're gonna have coffee, or we're just gonna hang out and flow and play and in freedom. And then you find that somebody has a label for you. This is an intellectual, this is a student, this is a great spiritual teacher, this is a botanist, it does whatever, it doesn't matter what the label is. Can we all relate to that? The sense of like being, or this is a mom, you're a mom, or you're a daughter, or a sister, and just parts, can you find, just as Amara is describing, can you find it in your own system something like, no, I want to be able to just, don't limit me, don't put me in that. Like, back to you, Amara.
Thank you. So yeah, now I want to refine, because putting in a box, that was strong. It was more of, like you said, a label or a description, like being described was uncomfortable. But the response to it, that's interesting. That no, that's interesting. Yeah. So I'm just wondering what's under that. And I don't know how parts oriented. I'm not so much parts oriented, so I don't know how it fits into the parts. Was there a part here that doesn't want to be labeled as a something?
What about the awesomeness of the no?
Yeah, like that, like what Susan was saying, maybe there's something here that didn't want to come out of that openness, like to be contracted. It was like I was being contracted into a something.
Yes, yeah. Like the awesomeness of that no, of the what, no. Why you want to do? We want to do that.
I love that. Yeah, the awesomeness of the no. It's like an empowered no, the way you put it, rather than me seeing it as resisting what is, which is that's a right. And now that's being revealed, that's a taboo. Like, don't resist the what is. You're doing it wrong, right? The celebrating the no as an empowerment. Yeah. And it's all dancing and fun again. Yeah. Because you bring that, Sid. That's what I love about you. You bring that
Oh.
celebration. Yeah. So lovely. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's it for now. I'm just so delighted to be here and be a part and to share. And I love your encouragement of us all sharing each other's systems. It's just like, to acknowledge it is to then perhaps not, we're all doing it anyway. So to acknowledge it is to not perhaps resist that experience. That's just brilliant. When we bring it up and name it, is to welcome that experience. Just kind of the opposite of what I just shared.
Thank you.
Anyway.
Thank you, Amara. I love where you ended with us, the sense of the no that was there. And then as we saw the awesomeness of the no, it was like, oh, then the dance and play. The dance and play was still here. It could include the no.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
That gets to be here too. Thank you.
Thank you. What about that for all of us? Just what we experienced in Amara, the no that came. And then as it was that we saw the awesomeness of the no, something lightened up, and it was just everything it could all be in the day, it could be included. The no wasn't something that was a problem. It's just like it gets to be included in the dance and play. What's your version of that? What's our version for all of us of the including of a part, whatever the part is, that it gets to be included in the party too? It gets to be included in the party and the love. And we're going to go to Jack. Jack has a comment, and then we'll kind of do a little closing. And Amara, if you have 5 minutes, if you could stay on after with me, I have a question for you. And Jack, what you got?
Yeah, I oftentimes, specifically with you, Sid, I find myself, the no for me comes when you ask an open-ended question and then give suggestions for the answer. And I'm not quite sure what you're trying to do with those, but oftentimes none of them will fit. Right? I think, oh, it's like a real strong concept. Like, what is he afraid? I mean, it's like this. I sort of like you feel like you're. I can't read what your emotions are, but it feels like you're really being like there's this defensive wall you're putting up by giving us answers, right? And
Yes, it's just A, B, or C. A, B, or C, Jack. A, B, or C.
Well, no. Well, how about this? Or how about this? Or how about this? Or how about this? And none of them completely make any sense to me necessarily, right? So oftentimes I have that sense of no come up. So thank you, Amara, for reminding me that can be part of the play. That's the important. And if I couldn't do that, I wouldn't come probably. But thank you, Sid. And thank you.
Thank you, Jack. So just how about that? Just as we're all in groups, right? And it's just like when the no's come up to whatever, it's like, no, I have my own way of doing. That's not what Sid, what you're saying, that's nonsense. That's just not the way it plays here. Oh, Amara?
I do have one more thing on that. So when there's a no there, when you're listing and I'm doing the same thing, I'm going, no, 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 no. Then this part comes in. It's like, oh, I don't fit here. Like, oh, I'm not doing it right. Like maybe I'm not doing it right. If I can't find myself on the list.
Yes.
And I can't find myself anywhere else, maybe I'm not doing it right. Anyway.
I like where Jack goes. Jack is like, okay, Sid, come on, man, stop it. This is what I gotta say. This is what I gotta say. And also what you said, those were wrong. And you'll say those sometimes. And that's the juiciest stuff, right? Because then it just opens everything up. And we also know the other part where we can feel like we have to do it a certain way. And anything else we've got? Oh, we're over time. Anything bubbling last minute? Anything bubbling real quick?
I have a caring part and an appreciative part of you, Sid, of how you received both Jack and Amara. Thank you. Thank you. That was really powerful. And thank you for a beautiful session. Really awesome.
Thank you very much. I need to leave.
Thank you, everybody. It's such a treat to be with
Thank
you and for your gifts you shared today.